Welcome back to the Crud Builder. We are about to start on the next phase of the build. And so the next step in order to make this thing actually move is to take a transmission and attach a transmission to the back of the motor and then attach one of those drive shafts to the back of the transmission and attach it to the rear end at the other end, and then you've got a car that can move and do things that you want it to do in a derby. So this thing is pretty much ready to go. I've got a torque converter already seated on here. I don't know what shape this transmission is. We're gonna try it and see. If it doesn't work, I've got a couple other turbo 350s. What we got to do though is we have to mount the brace to it. So I have to pull the brace out of the car. So the brace is going to come out of the car, and then we're going to attach the brace to the back of the tail housing, and then we'll be able to oh, it's hard to get into this thing. Once we can attach this, come here, you. There we go. Then we're going to jack the side of the car up, and we're going to roll the entire setup underneath and lift it with a jack until it's in position. Then we will bolt the brace to the back of the motor, back of the DP, I should say, and then we will bolt the torque converter to the flywheel or the flex plate. All right. That wasn't that hard. Okay. So let's talk about the way that this attaches here. And this is just the way that I built my brace. This isn't necessarily the way you have to build your brace. Those holes up front are what attach to the distributor protector on the back of the motor. These 4 bolts that attach this short tail housing to the main core of the transmission, what we're going to do is we're actually going to bolt through here, and we're going to bolt into the back of the core. So the way that I've designed this brace, these 4 holes line up with these 4 bolts. This tail housing will, these pieces of steel will basically mount between the main core and the tail housing. These 2 giant holes here and this basic box shape, this is what's going to attach to the transmission cross member. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this tail housing off. I may have to use slightly longer bolts than these. Sometimes the bolts that are in these aren't long enough to get all the way through. We'll see though. We'll be in good shape. A lot of guys, they like the Turbo 400s. The Turbo 400s, I'm told, are tougher. I broke the bell on a Turbo 400 and I've broken the bell on a Turbo 350. So you know, in my limited experience, I really couldn't tell the difference. Now that I've built a brace and I have some other things set up, like my shifter and a few other things, I purchased a bunch of just old beat Turbo 350s because all my stuff is now set for Turbo 350s. And when you do derby, actually I don't even need to take this off, do I? All that grime in there. Yeah. Actually don't need to take this off because now that I remember this, it does not go in between, it just goes right on the outside. So do this. Okay, so we've got these 4 bolts mounted in. Now we can put this back in for the moment. There we go. And that is roughly how it's gonna look in the car. If we spin it over to this side, our shifter is going to attach here and come up here. It's going to be a push-pull. So next step would be to get it back into the car, and then I can show you guys kind of what it looks like when it's mounted into the car. So the goal for this, now that we've got everything attached and together, is going to be basically lift the side of the car so that we can roll this entire setup underneath, put it up on a jack stand, then put this jack under that transmission and brace, and lift it up so that we can mount it to the distributor protector. So in order to do that, I'm gonna have to jack the car up. The hood. Good catch. That wouldn't have been good. Yeah. So keep it from falling over as well. right there. All right. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this okay. Let's get this stuff out of here. Okay, so this is pretty much now we should be able to lower the car with the transmission under there, but I think I still would like to at least have some jack stands under it. Okay. All right, so the car's on a jack stand now, and we've also lowered it somewhat. And from this point, what we're going to do is we're actually going to jack it up until we can get some of these bolt holes to line up, and then once we can get some of these bolt holes to line up, we'll bolt it in, and once we get it bolted in, then we can start bolting the torque converter to the flex plate. Hopefully you guys can see this. Here we are underneath the car. We have the transmission on our jack. We're ready to lift it all the way up to where it needs to go, but the problem that we're running into is I didn't make this area really big enough. Especially right in here, and even on this side. So I think the easiest, best way to go from this point is to actually bring the cutting wheel under here, and I'm actually just gonna extend this cut back so that we can clear the floor here and get this thing raised up to where it needs to be. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it off camera, and then I'll show you guys a a nice clear hole here that we can lift this transmission up and in.